Welcome back to The Explainer. So, today we're diving headfirst into a topic that, let's be honest, gets misunderstood all the time: ADHD. Specifically, we're tearing into the brilliant work of Dr. Richard Murdoch Montgomery, and we're focusing right on Chapter 4. This chapter tackles the nosological problem. Fancy word, right? Basically, it's about how we classify and actually understand this incredibly complex condition. We're going to decode the real mystery of ADHD and push way past those tired stereotypes you always hear. All right, let's just jump right in.
Okay, think about this for a second. If two people get the exact same ADHD diagnosis, why on earth can their brains and their daily behaviors look completely different? You know the old stereotype, right? Just an inability to focus or being easily distracted. But that one-size-fits-all label, it completely falls apart the second you look at the clinical reality. Like Dr. Montgomery points out, you could literally have two people sitting in the exact same waiting room, holding the exact same diagnostic paperwork, who experience the world in completely, radically different ways. To figure out why, we have to look at what's hiding just beneath the surface.
So, when we measure this in the general population, at first glance, it looks like just one giant mountain, a single wide curve. You probably look at that and think, okay, that's just ADHD, maybe varying a little bit in severity. But if you peel that back, that one giant mountain is actually made up of several hidden, overlapping sub-mountains. We've got the inattentive subtype over here, the combined subtype right in the middle, which is actually the biggest one, and then the hyperactive impulsive subtype over on the right. It's not one thing, it's this fascinating hidden spectrum.
And when you translate that statistical mountain into actual human beings, things get really wild. If we plot out three different patients, let's call them patient A, patient B, and patient C, who all share the exact same official DSM-5 diagnosis, you see that they're being pulled in entirely different clinical directions. We're talking across 6 major dimensions here, stuff like executive dysfunction, emotional dysregulation, motivational deficits, the whole shebang.
To really drive this home, just compare these profiles directly. Let's take patient A. They represent a highly inattentive profile, right? They really struggle with executive functions, but actually, they have very low emotional dysregulation. Now, stack them up against patient C. Patient C is highly emotional, dealing with deep motivational deficits, but honestly, their standard executive functions might actually look totally fine. It's the exact same medical label, but the daily reality for the person actually living it, night and day.
Moving on to Section 1, the neurobiological lenses, or what we can call the blind men and the elephant approach.
Now, science has been trying to make sense of this massive heterogeneity for years, and they've used all these different frameworks. It's honestly a lot like that old parable, you know? The blind men feeling different parts of an elephant and each one thinking they understand the whole animal. Right there in the center, you have the real ADHD, the actual complete person. But surrounding that are 7 different frameworks, or lenses, that researchers use. There's the executive disorder lens, the motivational disorder lens, the network dysregulation lens. As Dr. Montgomery points out in Chapter 4, this isn't a competition. It's not like one lens wins and the others are wrong. Every single lens is perfectly describing exactly what it sees, but they are completely blind to what they don't see.
Let's actually fire through 3 of the biggest lenses here just to see how they work. First up, the executive function lens. This one basically views ADHD as a broken steering wheel. It's a failure in working memory, planning, stopping yourself from doing things. Next is the activation lens. Now, this isn't about being bouncing off the walls hyper or completely sluggish. It's more like a dysregulated gas pedal. Patients fluctuate wildly, which, by the way, is totally backed up by atypical theta-beta brainwave ratios. And finally, the motivational lens. This one is all about dopamine. It suggests patients heavily discount delayed rewards. Basically, they need way higher stakes right here, right now, just to feel motivated.
All right, Section 2, the coordination failure, or when the brain's switch glitches.
Recently, neuroimaging has sort of pulled us away from just looking at isolated, broken parts. Instead, we're looking at large-scale network coordination. It's super interesting. Think of the brain as having these specialized teams. You've got the default mode network, or DMN. This is your brain's rest team. It's firing up when you're daydreaming or just thinking about yourself. On the flip side, you have the central executive network, the CEN. This is your work team, and it's active when you're doing something demanding. In a neurotypical brain, the handoff between these 2 teams is like a perfectly choreographed dance. One steps up, the other steps down. Seamless.
But here is where ADHD crashes the party. It comes down to the salience network, or the SAI. Think of the SAI as the interrupter. It's the master switch that's supposed to flip the controls between the resting DMN and the working CEN.
In an ADHD brain, though, two huge things go wrong. First, the switch misfires. It literally just doesn't trigger when it's supposed to. And second, because of that misfire, the rest network doesn't actually turn off when it's time to get to work.
Let's walk through exactly how this switch glitch plays out in real time. Step 1, your rest mode is on. Step 2, boom, a demanding task is put right in front of you. Step 3, that salient switch, the one that's supposed to swap your brain networks, misfires. And step 4, your rest mode fails to shut down cleanly. So what's the result? You're sitting there trying to do high-level executive work, but your daydreaming network is still stubbornly running in the background. It perfectly, and I mean perfectly, explains those profound attention and task-switching struggles that are so characteristic of ADHD.
And that brings us to Section 3, the mature model, synthesizing the 3D space of ADHD.
So, with all this complexity, how do we actually help a patient? Well, Dr. Montgomery makes a really strong argument in Chapter 4 that we have to embrace a truly integrated model. There's this great quote from the source material. Every lens sees one side of the same patient. None sees everything. If you're a doctor and you just treat the dopamine or you just treat the executive function, you are entirely missing the actual human being sitting across from you. Integration isn't just some nice philosophical idea anymore. It's an absolute clinical requirement.
Think of mapping this out in a 3D space. You track a patient's moments, grading them from light yellow for almost no impairment, all the way to dark red for severe struggles. Now pay attention to the three axes shaping this whole reality. First, you have trait. That's your biological, genetic baseline. Second, you've got state, which is your day-to-day fluctuations. You know, how much sleep you got, your mood, your motivation that day. And third, context, the actual environmental demands being piled on you right at that moment.
So, when does ADHD become truly, genuinely debilitating? It's when a very specific collision happens. It's when high biological trait meets high daily variability, and they both just slam into high environmental demands. The impairment doesn't just live in the genes, all by itself. You can look at this space and see corners where a person has a really high biological ADHD trait, but because their day is stable and their environment is forgiving, their actual impairment is pretty much zero. It's wild.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought to chew on. If severe impairment only really happens when trait, state, and context all collide together, how much of this disorder could we literally eliminate just by fixing the environment instead of always trying to fix the trait? I mean, that changes the whole game, doesn't it? It completely shifts the burden away from just medicating a biological reality towards actively designing better contexts for people to actually thrive in. Food for thought, right? Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions and keep learning.